I still remember that heart-stopping moment as if it were splashed in neon across my mind. The moment at my wife's college reunion when she boasted to everyone that I was a big-shot executive, while in truth I had been quietly working as a struggling analyst. Her gleaming smile and the way she spun the tale with such confidence cut me to the core. In those first 100 words, every laugh and knowing glance from her old friends felt like a betrayal, a public dismissal of my reality. And in that searing instant, I vowed that the truth would come out, by letting her friends reveal everything they knew. That evening, the atmosphere in the elegant banquet hall buzzed with the excitement of rekindled friendships and old college memories. I arrived with my wife, trying to blend into the crowd as we made our way to a reserved table. The air was perfumed with nostalgia and ambition, and as soon as the evening began, it was clear that everyone was eager to catch up on lost time. My wife, ever the storyteller, quickly became the center of attention. With a confident flair, she introduced me to her classmates as if I were an indispensable part of her glittering success story, even though behind the facade, I was just trying to hold on to my modest reality. Throughout the evening, as the champagne flowed and laughter echoed, I could sense an undercurrent of excitement, and perhaps even envy, in the eyes of her friends. They marveled at the career achievements she claimed I had, each remark twisting the knife a little deeper into my already bruised pride. I sat there, listening to their compliments, feeling a mixture of disbelief and humiliation. My wife had not only misrepresented my job, she had woven a narrative that painted me as a high-flying professional, far removed from my everyday struggle. The conversation around our table became a carousel of exaggerated tales and impressive claims. One of her friends, a successful entrepreneur with an easy smile, leaned in and said, "I can't imagine how you do it, balancing such a prestigious career and still managing family life. It must be so challenging." His words, though intended as admiration, only amplified the dissonance within me. I felt like a stranger in my own life, my reality overshadowed by a fabricated image that had been carefully curated to impress. I could feel my pulse quicken as I struggled to reconcile the truth of my humble work life with the glittering illusion my wife had created. I spent the rest of the dinner in a daze, my mind racing as I replayed every conversation. Why had she done it? Was it to elevate her own status among her old college friends? Or perhaps a subconscious need to mask her insecurities about our relationship? My heart ached with betrayal and confusion. I had always believed that honesty was the cornerstone of our partnership. Even when times were tough, we had always shared our struggles. Yet tonight, her polished version of our life felt like a betrayal so deep that it threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew about our love and trust. After the formal program ended, as guests mingled in the softly lit foyer, I withdrew to a quiet corner to gather my thoughts. I watched as my wife laughed and chatted animatedly, completely unaware of the turmoil inside me. My eyes met those of her friends, and I saw in their expressions a mixture of admiration and astonishment. They truly believed the story she had told. They applauded her and showered her with compliments. I felt a bitter irony. The very people who had once been my closest friends now reveled in a lie that painted me as something I was not. The pain of that realization stung deeply, yet it also ignited a spark of resolve. In that quiet solitude I made a decision. I couldn't let the truth remain buried under a veil of deception any longer. I would let her friends, those who now believed her carefully spun narrative, reveal the truth for themselves. It wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my identity and forcing the truth into the light. I decided that over the next few days I would approach those who I trusted, those who had known me long before these lies began, and gently encourage them to share their real knowledge of my career and work ethic. I had never sought the spotlight for accolades, but I wanted my true self to be seen and valued for what it was. That decision marked the beginning of a long, deliberate process of unveiling reality. I started by reaching out to an old friend from college, someone who had always been candid with me and never hesitated to speak the truth. Over coffee at a quiet, familiar cafe, I recounted the events of the reunion and expressed my hurt and confusion. He listened intently, his eyes reflecting both sympathy and understanding. "You know," he said quietly, "we all remember you as the guy who was always so determined even when things were tough. Your work, your dedication, it's nothing like what she's been claiming." His words were a balm to my wounded pride, and they gave me the courage to move forward. Emboldened by that conversation, I began to carefully contact several others who had known me before the lies took hold. I wrote thoughtful messages explaining that I was trying to set the record straight, not out of malice, but so that my true efforts and accomplishments wouldn't be overshadowed by false pretenses. Some responded with heartfelt support, recalling the long hours we spent together in the library or the late nights working on projects, affirming that I had always been a hardworking and talented individual. Others were more cautious, unsure of how to broach such a sensitive topic in light of the grand narrative my wife had spun. Yet each conversation, each shared memory served as a small victory, a quiet reclamation of the truth about who I was and what I had truly accomplished. I also began to document my own story, starting a private journal that detailed every nuance of my journey since that night. I wrote about the initial shock, the subsequent sadness, and the slow, deliberate steps I was taking to rebuild my self-worth. I recorded every instance of honesty and every gesture of genuine support I received from those who had known my true self. This journal wasn't just a repository of pain, it was a record of my gradual transformation, a testament to the fact that I was more than the sum of someone else's lies. In the midst of this emotional and psychological journey, my professional life continued to be a source of both comfort and motivation. I threw myself even more passionately into my work, determined to build a tangible legacy that would stand as undeniable proof of my abilities. I revisited projects I had once started with hope and gave them new life, infusing them with the energy of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. My colleagues began to notice a change in my demeanor. There was a new, quiet confidence in the way I presented ideas, a clarity of purpose that was unmistakable. Every successful project, every acknowledgement from higher-ups, was a reaffirmation that my dedication was real, that my capabilities were not a matter of opinion, but a fact backed by years of hard work. I started to set bold, ambitious goals for the future, goals that were entirely my own, untainted by the distorted image that had been portrayed at that reunion. I began investing in new opportunities, exploring avenues for growth that I had only previously dreamed about. Each new venture, each calculated risk, was a small rebellion against the narrative that had been forced upon me. I was determined to prove, both to myself and to those who doubted me, that I was not defined by a single moment of public humiliation, but by the cumulative strength of my convictions and the relentless pursuit of my dreams. Throughout these weeks, I balanced my quest for the truth with a steady dedication to self-improvement. I revisited every lesson learned from past experiences, both the good and the painful, and integrated them into a new holistic vision of my future. I enrolled in advanced courses in my field, read voraciously about emerging trends, and even joined online forums where like-minded professionals exchanged insights. These academic pursuits not only sharpened my skills but also helped me build a network of peers who valued honesty and hard work above all else. Their support further solidified my resolve to bring the truth into the open. The emotional toll was heavy at times, and there were days when I questioned whether I was ready to face the full consequences of unveiling the truth. The fear of confrontation, of shattering the carefully constructed image that had been maintained for years, loomed large. Yet, with each small act of honesty, each friend who bravely shared a memory of my real achievements, I grew more certain that this was the right path. I realized that in order to truly reclaim my identity, I had to allow the truth to surface, even if it meant dismantling the facade that had been built around my life. I began to plan discreet gatherings with close friends, a series of casual get-togethers where we could talk openly about the past, share memories, and, subtly, let the truth emerge naturally. At these intimate gatherings, the atmosphere was raw and honest. I listened as friends recalled the long hours we'd spent working on challenging projects, the determination in my eyes when deadlines loomed large, and the genuine passion that drove every decision I made. Their recollections painted a picture of a man who was far more resilient and capable than the image my wife had so carelessly projected. Each shared memory, each moment of truth, chipped away at the false narrative that had been constructed. Even as I pushed forward with these subtle revelations, I kept my ultimate goal in sight, to let the truth speak for itself. I knew that once a critical mass of genuine recollections was shared among her old friends and acquaintances, the facade would crumble on its own. I took comfort in the fact that truth, though sometimes slow to emerge, is an unstoppable force. I wrote emails, made phone calls, and even scheduled private meetings with individuals I trusted, gently guiding them to remember the reality of who I was and what I had accomplished. I wasn't looking for a grand showdown. I simply wanted the truth to permeate every conversation, every reunion, until the illusion was impossible to maintain. Throughout this journey, I maintained a rigorous routine that balanced my work, my physical health, and my emotional well-being. Mornings were for running and reflecting, afternoons were dedicated to work and study, and evenings, though sometimes solitary, were spent in the quiet company of my journal or in meaningful conversations with friends who believed in me. With each passing day, I felt a gradual but undeniable shift in my sense of self, a reawakening of the passion and ambition that had once been dulled by compromise. I was no longer the man who had been defined by someone else's shallow judgment. I was a man who had reclaimed his narrative piece by piece, and was determined to forge a future that honored my true worth. By the time a few weeks had passed, I noticed subtle but significant changes in the conversations at subsequent social gatherings. At a small dinner with some of my wife's old college friends, the tone began to shift. Whispers of my genuine achievements started to circulate. A colleague recalled how I had once stayed up for weeks perfecting a project that seemed destined to fail, only to turn it into a resounding success. Another friend mentioned a time when my innovative ideas had saved a failing initiative. These small, genuine recollections began to pierce through the veneer of the lies that had been spread, setting the stage for a larger transformation in public perception. It became clear that the truth was slowly, inexorably emerging. The more my trusted friends shared their memories, the more the myth of dumb faded away, replaced by the undeniable evidence of my hard work, intelligence, and perseverance. With each conversation, I felt my identity being rebuilt from the ground up, stronger, clearer, and more resilient than ever before. I realized that my journey of rediscovery was not just about reclaiming my reputation, but about understanding that my worth was inherent, unaltered by the misguided opinions of those who had chosen to live in illusions. I still recall the moment I knew that everything had irrevocably changed. A moment when, standing at the crossroads of my life, I realized that the ultimatum had not only forced me to choose myself, but had lit the path to a future built entirely on my own terms. It was a cold, clear morning. The sky was a vast expanse of blue, unmarred by the storms of the past. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching as the city awoke below me, each ray of sunlight a promise that I had finally reclaimed my destiny. I felt an overwhelming mixture of grief, relief, and fierce pride. In that moment, every tear, every sleepless night, every bitter word of the ultimatum, all had led me here to a place where I was no longer defined by the constraints of a relationship that demanded I sacrifice who I truly was. I had left her with nothing but the memory of her own unyielding demands, and in doing so, I had found the strength to rebuild every piece of my life. The journey after that fateful decision was long, painful, and transformative. In the days immediately following my departure, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions. At first, there was a crushing loneliness, a deep, hollow ache that made every moment feel endless. I wandered through our once shared home, each room echoing with memories of laughter, whispered promises, and the slow erosion of trust. Every corner was a reminder of a life that I had known, now shattered by the ultimatum she had so coldly delivered. I sat for hours on the edge of our old sofa, staring blankly at the faded photographs on the mantel, trying to piece together the man I once was and the man I needed to become. The pain was almost unbearable, but in that darkness, I began to glimpse a fragile light, a realization that I had a choice and that I could define my future on my own terms. I sought refuge in the early hours of each day. Before the city stirred, I would slip out of the apartment and take long, solitary walks through quiet neighborhoods and empty parks. The chill in the morning air was brisk and unforgiving, yet with each step I took, I felt a renewal of spirit. The steady rhythm of my footsteps became a mantra, a silent pledge to reclaim every dream I had once let slip away. I learned to find solace in solitude, to let the quiet moments wash over me, and to rebuild my self-worth piece by piece. Every run, every reflective walk, became a cornerstone of my transformation, a daily reminder that my life was mine to rebuild, free from the expectations and ultimatums that had once constrained me. At home, I transformed my space into a sanctuary of reinvention. I cleared away the remnants of our shared past, the old furniture, the photographs that once held so much promise, and replaced them with items that reflected who I aspired to be. I decorated the walls with vibrant art that I had collected during my solitary wanderings, and I filled shelves with books on personal growth, entrepreneurship, and philosophy. Every object in my new space was chosen deliberately, a testament to my commitment to living authentically. I set up a dedicated workspace where I could pour my energy into creative projects and innovative ideas that had long been buried under the weight of compromise. This space became my command center, a place where I could strategize, dream, and, most importantly, heal. Professionally, the fallout from the ultimatum pushed me to unprecedented levels of focus and determination. I had always been a diligent worker, but now, with the sting of her ultimatum fresh in my mind, I channeled every ounce of my energy into my career. I volunteered for high-stakes projects, took on leadership roles that challenged me to think beyond the confines of routine, and began to invest in my professional development with a ferocity that surprised even me. Late nights at the office transformed from a weary obligation into a battleground where I fought to prove that I was more than what she had deemed me, a man of potential, driven by ambition and the courage to forge his own path. I enrolled in advanced courses, attended industry conferences, and networked relentlessly with peers and mentors who believed in my vision. With each new project and every accolade that followed, I built a reputation for unwavering resilience and innovative thinking. My successes began to speak for themselves, turning whispers of doubt into roars of admiration. I no longer felt the need to defend my worth. Instead, I let my achievements serve as an unassailable declaration that I had chosen myself, and that my future was destined for greatness. Yet, despite the rapid progress on the professional front, the emotional wounds of that ultimatum were slow to heal. There were nights when the ghosts of our past would visit me unbidden, flashes of memories in which her voice, cold and unyielding, repeated the words, "Either you change or you leave." In those moments, I would retreat into the solitude of my study, pouring my thoughts onto paper with raw honesty. My journal became a sacred repository of pain and hope, where I chronicled every tear, every pang of regret, and every emerging glimmer of self-assurance. I wrote about the fear of the unknown, the bittersweet sorrow of leaving behind a shared history, and the quiet exhilaration of discovering my own potential. With each entry, I began to see that the wounds of betrayal, though deep, were also the source of my burgeoning strength. I learned that healing was not a linear process. It was a winding path filled with setbacks and breakthroughs, each one a necessary step toward a future that I had chosen to create. During this period of profound introspection, I also reconnected with the world around me in new and meaningful ways. I attended community events and social gatherings not as a man burdened by loss, but as someone eager to embrace new experiences and forge genuine connections. I discovered that many people had faced similar ultimatums and heartbreaks, and that in sharing our stories, we could all find solace and strength. At one particularly memorable dinner with a small group of old friends, we talked late into the night about the nature of sacrifice, the price of authenticity, and the liberating power of choosing oneself. Their words, full of empathy and encouragement, reinforced a truth I had come to accept, that my worth was not determined by someone else's demands, but by the courage to pursue my own happiness. In those moments, I felt less isolated, less alone, and increasingly confident in the path I had chosen. My personal relationships, too, began to transform as I embraced this new identity. I started reconnecting with family members who had always seen the real me, the man behind the layers of doubt and compromise. We spent long hours reminiscing about the past, laughing at shared memories, and discussing dreams that had once been put on hold. These reconnections served as a reminder that I was not defined by the failure of a relationship. I was defined by the enduring bonds of love, respect, and shared history. I also made new friends, people who celebrated individuality and encouraged each other to chase their passions, no matter how daunting the obstacles. Through these relationships, I learned that true companionship is built on mutual support and the willingness to uplift one another in times of need. As the weeks turned into months, the professional and personal aspects of my transformation began to converge. My career was flourishing, my network of supportive friends and mentors had grown, and I was steadily carving out a new identity, one that was vibrant, self-assured, and unapologetically authentic. I began setting long-term goals that reflected my renewed aspirations. I envisioned launching a startup of my own, one that would leverage my skills and experiences to create something innovative and impactful. I started drafting business plans, researching market trends, and even brainstorming potential partnerships with individuals who shared my passion for innovation. Every decision was a declaration that I was no longer willing to be held back by the past. I was building a future that was entirely my own. Yet, the journey was not without its moments of profound solitude. Late at night, as I sat in the quiet of my apartment with only the soft hum of the city for company, I would sometimes feel a pang of nostalgia for the life I had once shared. A life that, despite its imperfections, had offered a sense of familiarity and comfort. In those moments, I allowed myself to grieve for what was lost, knowing that healing was a process that required both acceptance and renewal. I read my journal entries, the raw, unvarnished reflections of a man who had faced unimaginable pain, and I recognized the beauty in that vulnerability. It was through that vulnerability that I discovered my true strength, an inner resilience that would carry me forward no matter how dark the night. One crisp autumn afternoon, after a particularly challenging day at work, I found myself at a local cafe with a group of fellow entrepreneurs. The conversation was animated, filled with tales of setbacks and the relentless pursuit of success. As I listened to their stories, I shared my own journey, The moment my wife had given me an ultimatum, the crushing weight of her words, and the slow, painstaking process of rebuilding my identity from the ashes. Their eyes widened with empathy, and in that shared moment of vulnerability, I realized that my struggles were not unique. They were part of a larger tapestry of human resilience. The support I received that day was overwhelming. It reaffirmed my belief that my journey, as painful as it had been, was a powerful testament to the indomitable spirit within all of us. I began to see that every setback, every bitter moment of rejection, had been the catalyst for a transformation that now defined me. I embraced the fact that my past, with all its scars and heartbreak, was not a burden to be carried forever. It was a foundation upon which I could build a brighter future. I invested in my education, attended workshops on personal empowerment, and even started mentoring young professionals who had faced similar challenges. Each act of mentorship, each conversation with a struggling entrepreneur, served as a mirror reflecting back the strength I had cultivated. I realized that by helping others, I was further healing my own wounds, turning my personal pain into a beacon of hope for those still lost in the shadows of their own struggles. In the midst of these endeavors, my financial stability began to blossom. I reevaluated my investments, diversified my portfolio, and started planning for future ventures that aligned with my newfound vision. Every financial decision was made with a sense of purpose, a quiet rebellion against the notion that I was defined by scarcity. I watched in awe as my portfolio grew, each increase in value a tangible reminder that my hard work was paying off. The once crushing weight of financial insecurity was slowly being replaced by a steady, affirming sense of abundance. I began to see that my financial independence was not just about wealth, it was about freedom, about the ability to shape my own destiny without being tethered to someone else's demands. As my professional achievements multiplied and my personal growth deepened, I finally reached a turning point. A moment when I could look back on the journey and see not just the pain, but the incredible resilience that had carried me through. I organized a small, intimate gathering of close friends, family, and trusted mentors to celebrate the milestones I had achieved. There were no extravagant gestures, no grand speeches, just honest, heartfelt words of gratitude and recognition. In that circle, I shared the full story of my journey, the ultimatum that had shattered my world, the solitary nights filled with introspection, the long, painful road of self-discovery, and finally, the triumphant moments that reaffirmed my worth. Their support, their genuine admiration, and the shared understanding in their eyes was the final confirmation that I had indeed emerged stronger. In that moment of celebration, I realized that I had truly chosen myself. I had left behind a life where my worth was constantly questioned and had stepped boldly into a future where I defined my own success. I saw my ex-wife's face in fleeting recollections, not with bitterness, but with a resigned understanding that her choices had led her down a different path. I recognized that the life I was now building was richer, more authentic, and far more fulfilling than anything I had ever imagined while I was shackled by someone else's ultimatum. Now, as I sit here reflecting on this transformative journey, I know that every tear, every sleepless night, and every moment of heartache was a necessary step toward becoming the person I am today. I have learned that true empowerment is not about vindicating oneself by tearing others down. It's about rising above the pain, embracing your true self, and building a future that reflects your deepest values and aspirations. My journey has been marked by loss and betrayal, but also by profound growth and an unwavering commitment to self-love. I stand here not as a victim of circumstance, but as a man who chose his own destiny. I have reclaimed my identity, rebuilt my dreams, and in doing so, discovered that the strength to transform adversity into opportunity lies within each of us. Every setback was a lesson, every painful moment a reminder that you are capable of far more than the world would have you believe. I have chosen to live a life defined by courage, authenticity, and relentless determination. A life where every day is an opportunity to write a new chapter, to seize your destiny, and to never let anyone else dictate your worth. This is my story, a journey from the crushing ultimatum to the liberation of self-reclamation. It is a testament to the unyielding power of the human spirit, a celebration of resilience that has turned heartbreak into the fuel for a brighter, uncharted future. And as I move forward, I do so with a heart full of gratitude, a mind sharpened by every trial, and the unwavering belief that my destiny is mine to create, one bold, determined step at a time.